Brothers and sisters, there is a divine principle hidden in the everyday things around us. Salt, a simple, ordinary substance, carries a mighty spiritual message. In the Bible, salt is a symbol of preservation, protection, and purity. It's not just a seasoning for your food, it's a representation of God's power to preserve and protect your life and your home. Today I want to challenge you to put salt in 5 places in your home and watch how God begins to move, how his presence fills your space, and how his protection surrounds you. The front door is not just a physical entrance to your home, it's a powerful spiritual gateway. It is the threshold through which every blessing, every challenge, every visitor, and every influence must pass to enter your household. What happens at this point determines the atmosphere inside your home. If the entrance is left unguarded, if it is weak or unprotected, it leaves the entire household. That's why putting salt at your front door is not just a ritual, it's a spiritual act of declaring God's protection and establishing his authority over your home. Salt in the Bible is often a symbol of covenant, purity, preservation, and protection. When God commands his people to put salt on their offerings, it signifies an unbreakable covenant between God and his people, a promise that cannot be dissolved. When salt is placed at the threshold of your home, it is a tangible reminder and declaration that your home belongs to God and his covenant protection surrounds it. You are essentially saying, this is a holy place, a place under divine protection, a place where God's favor dwells and where evil cannot take root. Every day, your front door faces spiritual attacks. The enemy doesn't just want to harass you on the inside. He targets your entry points. The doors, the gates, the pathways, these are the vulnerable spots that can allow fear, doubt, confusion, or destruction to infiltrate your life and your family. But God's word assures us that he is a shield around those who trust in him. Salt at your front door acts as a visible symbol of that spiritual shield. It is a hedge of protection, just like the hedge God put around Job's household, that keeps harm away. When you place salt at your front door, you are engaging in spiritual warfare. This act is a declaration that no weapon formed against your home will prosper. It's not magic or superstition. It's faith in God's promises. The enemy may try to bring sickness, financial struggles, discord, or fear, but the salt stands as a boundary he cannot cross. It's like a line drawn in the sand, backed by the power of God himself. You are telling the enemy, you are not welcome here. This home belongs to the Lord. Salt also symbolizes preservation. Just as salt preserves food from decay, it preserves your home from moral decay, spiritual darkness, and destructive influences. The enemy would love to see your family torn apart by strife, bitterness, or division, but salt at the door represents God's sustaining power over your home life. It keeps your household fresh and whole, protected from corruption, and anchored in truth. You are inviting God's preserving grace to hold your family together no matter what external pressures come your way. Moreover, the front door is the point of first impression. What you place there sends a message, not only to those who enter, but to the spiritual realm. Salt here is a sign that your household is seasoned with the presence of God. It is a declaration that your home will be a place of blessing, peace, and righteousness. This is important because the enemy wants to bring confusion and chaos through the front door. But by putting salt there, you are covering the entrance with God's peace and authority. Spiritually, the front door is also symbolic of your heart's openness to God and to others. When salt is placed there, it is a prayer that your heart and home will be guarded against bitterness, unforgiveness, and evil influences. It is a way of inviting God's presence to rule and reign from the very threshold of your life. This is powerful because often the battles we fight are fought at the gate of our hearts. What we allow in, what we let pass, and what we shut out. The act of putting salt at the front door is more than just placing a physical substance. It's an expression of faith. It says, I trust God to be the gatekeeper of my home. You are actively inviting His protection and declaring your dependence on His promises. The Bible says, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. By putting salt at your door, you are telling God, my mind and my home are steadfast. I will not be shaken. I trust you to keep my family safe. And God is faithful when He sees your faith expressed in obedience, no matter how small or symbolic. He moves in powerful ways. That salt at your front door becomes a spiritual marker, a boundary line, a signpost of your trust in Him. It reminds you every day as you enter and leave your home that you walk under God's protection, guided by His favor. So don't overlook this simple yet profound act. It's not about the salt itself, but what the salt represents. God's covenant protection, His preserving power, and His authority over your life and home. This spiritual declaration at your front door establishes a hedge of protection that can change the atmosphere of your entire household. It invites God to move in and move powerfully. The kitchen is more than just a room where meals are prepared. It is the heart of provision and nourishment in your home. This is the place where your family is fed and strengthened physically, but it is also a sacred space that represents God's ongoing provision and care in your daily life. When you place salt in your kitchen, you are not just seasoning your food. You are making a spiritual declaration about God's provision, blessing, and abundance over your household. Salt in Scripture symbolizes much more than flavor. It represents God's covenant faithfulness, His preservation, and His favor. It preserves food from decay and keeps it wholesome, just as God's favor preserves your life and your household from lack, loss, and stagnation. When you put salt in your kitchen, you are inviting God's hand of blessing to rest upon your provision and sustenance. It is a prayer that every meal prepared in your home will be seasoned with God's goodness and grace. That it will nourish not only the body, but also the spirit. To think about it, our bodies need nourishment every day to function, to grow, and to thrive. But nourishment is not only physical, it is also spiritual and emotional. The kitchen is where you break bread, where your family gathers in fellowship, where celebrations take place, and where daily needs are met. By placing salt in this space, you are declaring that God will supply all your needs according to His riches in glory. This act becomes a tangible expression of faith, acknowledging that God is your ultimate provider, that nothing escapes His care, and that he is involved in the everyday details of your life. Salt also symbolizes the power of God to transform and bless what you touch. Just as a small amount of salt can change the flavor of an entire dish, God's blessing can transform every aspect of your provision. Whether it is your food, your finances, or your relationships, when you put salt in your kitchen, you are inviting God to add his flavor of favor and blessing to your home. This means your kitchen is not a place of scarcity or struggle, but a place where abundance flows, where God's hand is evident, and where every need is met. Furthermore, the kitchen represents the place of preparation. Before food reaches the table, it must be prepared with care, patience, and skill. Spiritually, this mirrors the process God uses to prepare you for the blessings he wants to pour out. Putting salt in your kitchen symbolizes your willingness to submit to God's preparation and refining work in your life. You acknowledge that just as food must be seasoned and prepared to nourish, your life must be seasoned with God's presence and his timing. This is why putting salt in the kitchen can be such a powerful spiritual act. It aligns your heart with God's provision and prepares you to receive his blessings. It says, God, I trust you with my daily bread. I invite you to bless what I have and multiply it. This simple act reflects a heart posture of dependence and gratitude, recognizing that every good thing comes from God. Salt also has the power to cleanse and purify. In your kitchen, this is especially meaningful because it represents God's ability to cleanse your home and your life from anything that might contaminate or corrupt your blessings. It is a declaration that no poison of doubt, worry, or lack will infect your provision. Instead, you are standing on the promise that God's provision is pure, sufficient, and overflowing. The kitchen is often where family dynamics play out. Meals bring people together, conversations unfold, and relationships are nurtured. Putting salt here invites God's peace and unity into those interactions. It's a prayer that your home will be a place where everyone is nourished, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. The salt becomes a symbol of God's presence, seasoning the atmosphere, making your home a sanctuary of love and connection. When God moves in your kitchen, it's a reminder that he cares about the small things as much as the big things. The daily meals, the conversations around the table, the laughter, and even the challenges, he is present in it all. By placing salt in your kitchen, you recognize that God's blessings are not just for extraordinary moments, but for everyday life. His provision is continuous and faithful. So when you put salt in your kitchen, you are setting an atmosphere for God's blessing to flow freely. You are inviting him to be the unseen guest at your table, the provider of your sustenance and the source of your abundance. It's a spiritual declaration that your home will never lack, that your needs will be met, and that God's grace will season every meal and every moment spent there. In this simple act lies a profound truth. God delights in blessing his children and meeting their needs. Your faith, expressed through this act, opens a door for his supernatural provision. It's a reminder that no matter the size of your pantry, no matter your circumstances, God's blessing is bigger. When salt is placed in your kitchen, it symbolizes the invitation for God to work miracles in the ordinary, to bring abundance in the routine, and to satisfy your family's needs abundantly. In your kitchen, where nourishment begins, let salt be a symbol of God's ongoing provision, favor, and blessing. Let it remind you daily that God is faithful to provide, to bless, and to sustain. Let it be a tangible sign of your trust in Him, a trust that will see your table overflow and your family flourish under His care. These windows are much more than simple openings to the outside world. They are symbolic gateways for light, vision, and perspective. Through your windows, you see the world, you gain insight, and you connect with what lies beyond your immediate surroundings. Spiritually, windows represent your outlook on life, your mental clarity, and the vision you carry for your future. When you place salt by your windows, you are making a powerful declaration that you want God's perspective to illuminate your vision, to clear your mind, and to protect your outlook from darkness and confusion. Salt, as a biblical symbol, carries the weight of preservation, purity, and covenant. It preserves and protects, it cleanses and seasons. To place salt by your windows is to ask God to preserve your vision, to protect what you see and how you see it from corruption, deception, and negativity. It is a spiritual act of keeping your mind and your view of the world pure, grounded in truth, and aligned with God's will. Too often, the enemy tries to cloud our vision. He wants us to see through lenses of fear, doubt, anxiety, and discouragement. He wants to distort what we believe about our future, about ourselves, and about God's plans. But salt by your windows is a statement that you will not allow your vision to be tainted by lies or negativity. You are inviting God's light to shine through every window in your life, to open your eyes to His truth, and to guide you in clarity and wisdom. Spiritually, the Bible speaks of God opening eyes, physical and spiritual, to see what we could not before. When salt is placed by your windows, it symbolizes this divine opening of sight. It is a prayer for revelation, understanding, and discernment. You are asking God to help you see clearly what He is doing in your life, to recognize the opportunities He places before you, and to avoid the traps the enemy sets. Windows also represent opportunity and perspective. The way you see your circumstances determines how you respond to them. When salt is by your windows, you are declaring that you want God to control your perspective. You want to see things as He sees them, not through the lens of stress, hopelessness, or confusion, but through eyes of faith, hope, and victory. This changes everything because your perspective influences your attitude, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. Salt by your windows is also a call for protection. Just as windows can be broken or infiltrated, so too can your mind and vision be attacked. Negative thoughts, doubt, worry, and fear try to sneak in through the cracks. But salt creates a spiritual barrier, preserving your mind from these attacks and keeping your vision intact. It helps guard your heart and mind from the destructive power of negativity, enabling you to maintain peace and focus. Furthermore, placing salt by your windows is an act of inviting God's presence into your home. It is a statement that your household will be a place where divine wisdom flows freely, where insight is valued, and where the light of God's truth shines brightly. Your home becomes a sanctuary of clarity and revelation, a place where spiritual blindness is lifted and God's purposes are made clear. Vision is crucial for a victorious life. Proverbs tells us that without vision, people perish. When you put salt by your windows, you are acknowledging that you need God's vision to guide your steps. You are asking Him to remove any spiritual fog, any confusion, and any distraction so that you can move forward with confidence. This act aligns your home and your life with divine insight, ensuring that your decisions and actions reflect God's will. Salt's preserving power also means that your vision will be enduring. It is not a fleeting glimpse or a temporary hope. It is a sustaining revelation that will guide you through trials and triumphs alike. Salt by your windows means your vision is seasoned with God's promises and will remain fresh and vibrant no matter what storms come. In practical terms, this means you will find clarity in times of uncertainty. You will see opportunities where others see obstacles. Your eyes will be open to the blessings that God has placed just beyond your sight, and your heart will be encouraged to move forward boldly. Salt by your windows is a reminder that God is in control, that He is illuminating your path, and that He will never leave you in darkness. This act is also a call to renew your mind daily. Just as salt preserves food from decay, it preserves your thoughts and attitudes from negativity and defeat. It helps keep your mind fixed on things above, not on earthly troubles. By placing salt by your windows, you are committing to filter what you allow into your life, whether it be through the media, conversations, or your own thoughts, so that only what aligns with God's truth will be allowed to influence you. Finally, salt by your windows is a declaration of hope. It is a statement that no matter how dark the world outside may seem, your home is filled with the light of God's presence and the clarity of His vision. It is an act of faith that invites God to move mightily, opening doors that were once closed, clearing obstacles that once blocked your path, and providing fresh insight into your purpose and destiny. In placing salt by your windows, you are spiritually preparing yourself and your household for God's intervention. You are setting a foundation for divine insight, protection, and clarity that will sustain you through every season. This simple act will transform the atmosphere of your home, turning it into a place where God's light shines brightly and where His vision for your life becomes clearer every day. The bedroom is a sacred space, a place of rest, restoration, intimacy, and refuge. It is where your body finds refreshment after the trials of the day, where your mind can be at peace, and where your spirit can experience renewal. Because of the profound importance of this space, putting salt in your bedrooms is a powerful spiritual act. It symbolizes inviting God's peace, protection, and healing into the most private and vulnerable part of your home and your life. Salt in the Bible symbolizes preservation and purity. It is used to season, cleanse, and protect. When placed in your bedroom, salt represents a divine hedge of protection surrounding you as you rest. The enemy seeks to steal your peace, disrupt your rest, and bring anxiety or fear in the quiet moments of the night. But salt is a declaration that God's peace will guard your bedroom. It says, "No weapon formed against my rest will prosper. No fear or torment will disturb this place." Salt is like a spiritual firewall, keeping negativity, bad dreams, and attacks from entering. The bedroom is where vulnerability is at its greatest, When we sleep, our defenses are lowered, and our minds and bodies are most sensitive to spiritual and emotional influences. That's why the enemy targets this space. He wants to rob you of the restoration and strength you need to face the next day. But by putting salt in your bedroom, you are placing a spiritual shield around this vulnerable spot. You are asking God to be your protector and guardian while you rest, ensuring that no harm can come to you or your loved ones during the night. Rest is more than just physical, it is spiritual. Psalm 4:8 says, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." This promise speaks to the deep peace that God gives, a peace that surpasses understanding and shields us from fear. Salt in the bedroom is a practical expression of this promise. It reminds you daily that your rest is covered by God's peace and safety. Moreover, the bedroom is a place of intimacy, not only with your spouse, but also with God. It is where many people pour out their hearts in prayer, where they seek God's face in quiet moments. Placing salt in this space invites purity and holiness. It calls for the removal of anything that might contaminate your spiritual intimacy, bitterness, unforgiveness, or distractions that steal your focus. Salt seasons the atmosphere, making your bedroom a sanctuary of sacred connection with God and your spouse. Salt also carries the power to cleanse and heal. In ancient times, salt was used for healing wounds and preserving life. Spiritually, putting salt in your bedroom invites God's healing touch to restore any brokenness, pain, or trauma that you or your loved ones may carry. It is a declaration that your bedroom is a place of emotional and spiritual healing, a place where God's restorative power moves freely. This act is a reminder that God's protection is not passive but active. He is not distant while you sleep. He is a vigilant guardian who never slumbers or sleeps. When you place salt in your bedroom, you are declaring your faith in his active protection. You trust that he watches over your coming and going, your waking and your sleeping, and that his angels encamp around you. Furthermore, the bedroom is where dreams are born. It is a place where God often speaks to our spirits, reveals his plans, and gives us visions of the future. Salt by the bedside is a spiritual invitation for clarity and protection over your dreams. It is a declaration that your dreams will not be confused or corrupted by fear or darkness, but will be clear, hopeful, and aligned with God's purpose for your life. Salt in your bedroom also signifies a declaration of peace within your family relationships. Many conflicts and stresses carry over into the home and can disturb peace in the bedroom. By placing salt here, you are inviting God's peace to rule in those intimate spaces. Peace that brings reconciliation, understanding, and love. It's a spiritual declaration that no strife or discord will take root where love and rest are meant to flourish. This spiritual act also aligns with the biblical principle of God being our refuge and fortress. The bedroom becomes a fortress of faith, where God's protection is made manifest. It's a place where you can retreat from the storms of life, knowing that God's peace guards your heart and mind. You are declaring that your bedroom is not just a place to sleep, but a place where God's presence dwells, providing strength and renewal. In practical terms, putting salt in your bedroom encourages you to be intentional about creating a space of peace and sanctity. It reminds you to guard your rest by removing distractions, cultivating a spirit of forgiveness, and inviting God's presence through prayer and worship. Salt becomes a physical reminder of spiritual realities, a tangible way to express your faith in God's protection and peace. When you place salt in your bedroom, you are not just marking a physical spot. You are marking a spiritual boundary. You are saying this is a holy place, a place of rest and restoration, a place under God's protection. It invites God's supernatural peace to saturate every corner of the room, pushing back darkness and bringing light. This simple act will transform the atmosphere of your bedroom, turning it into a refuge where fear cannot enter, where rest is deep and restorative, and where God's healing presence flows. It will make you more aware of God's peace, even in the busiest or most stressful seasons of life. So let salt in your bedrooms be a sign of your faith, a declaration of God's protection, and an invitation for his healing peace. It is a spiritual act that sets a foundation for restful nights, peaceful minds, and hearts renewed in God's love. Entryways are the thresholds between the outside world and the sanctuary of your home. They mark the transition from public to private, from chaos to peace, from uncertainty to security. Spiritually, entryways represent the places of access, both physical and spiritual, where forces seek to come in or be kept out. Placing salt in your home's entryways is a powerful act of spiritual authority, a declaration that God's protection stands guard over every door and every threshold. It is an invitation for God to control what comes in and what goes out, protecting your home from harm and inviting his blessing to enter. Salt has long been recognized as a symbol of preservation and protection. It is not just seasoning, it is a spiritual safeguard. When you put salt at your doorways, you are setting a divine boundary, a covenantal line of defense that says no evil, no negativity, no spiritual attack can pass through without God's permission. This is not a passive gesture, but an act of faith and authority, recognizing that God's power protects your home and your family from all harm. Your front door is the first point of contact with the world. It is where guests arrive, where opportunities enter, but also where dangers can threaten. Spiritually, the enemy often targets entryways as strategic points to gain access to your life. But when you place salt at these places, you are exercising God-given authority to guard your threshold. You are telling the enemy that this home is covered by the blood of Jesus, protected by God's favor, and that no weapon formed against it will prosper. This act acknowledges that spiritual warfare happens at the boundaries of your life. The enemy wants to sneak in through your doors to bring confusion, discord, or destruction. But salt is a symbol of God's covenant, his promises to protect and preserve his people. It is a reminder that God's protection surrounds your home like a fortress, that he is your shield and defender. In addition to protection, putting salt at your entryways is an act of inviting blessing and favor. The doors of your home are entry points for God's abundance, his peace, provision, joy, and success. By placing salt here, you are opening the door for God's blessings to come in freely. It is a spiritual invitation for divine favor to walk in, for peace to reign, and for prosperity to be evident within your walls. Entryways also symbolize opportunities and new beginnings. When you put salt at these places, you are declaring that every new season, every fresh start, and every opportunity that comes through your doors will be seasoned by God's wisdom and favor. You are asking God to bless the transitions in your life, to guard the beginnings, and to lead you into new levels of His goodness. Salt's preserving quality means that the blessings that come through your doors will be sustained. It's not just about momentary success or fleeting joy. It is about long-lasting letting, divine preservation of what God gives you. Salt preserves food so it does not spoil. Similarly, God's blessings preserved by His covenant remain fresh and flourishing in your life and home. Spiritually, placing salt at entryways is also a way to guard the atmosphere of your home. The entryway sets the tone for what happens inside. If negativity or darkness is allowed to come through unchecked, it can influence the entire household. But salt acts as a purifier, a cleanser of the air and the spiritual environment. It pushes back spiritual darkness, discouragement, and fear, creating a space where God's presence is welcome and where peace is the reigning atmosphere. Your home is a sanctuary, a holy place set apart by God. The entryways are like the gates of a city in ancient times where guards stood to protect the inhabitants. By placing salt at your doors, you are standing in the gap as a spiritual guard, exercising authority over what enters your home. You are declaring that you will not allow any harmful influences to cross this threshold. Moreover, salt at your entryways is a declaration of God's sovereignty. It says that your home belongs to Him and that He has ultimate control over who comes in and goes out. This act is a recognition that God's presence is the foundation of your household's safety and peace. It is an expression of your trust that God will watch over your comings and goings, that He will keep your family safe and secure. Practically, this act encourages you to be intentional about guarding your home. It reminds you to be mindful of what you allow in, whether it's the influences you bring in through relationships, media, or environments. Salt serves as a physical and spiritual reminder that you are called to protect your home, to create boundaries, and to cultivate an atmosphere where God's peace and blessing flourish. Entryways also represent spiritual gates where decisions are made. When someone crosses the threshold, they bring their energy, their attitude, and their spirit. Salt at your doors acts like a spiritual filter, helping to maintain the sanctity of your home. It helps keep out anything that does not align with God's purposes, ensuring that only what promotes peace, joy, and love finds its way inside. The Bible speaks often of gates and doors, doors of opportunity, doors of blessing, and gates of righteousness. When you put salt at your entryways, you are aligning yourself with God's promises to open doors that no one can shut and to shut doors that no one can open. It is an act of faith that declares you will walk through doors of blessing and protection, not doors of trouble and harm. In summary, placing salt at your home's entryways is a spiritual strategy. It is a declaration of protection, favor, and divine authority. It invites God's blessing to enter and sets a boundary against every form of evil. This simple yet powerful act shapes the spiritual atmosphere of your home and establishes a foundation of peace, security, and divine favor. By placing salt in your entryways, you exercise your God-given authority over your home. You create a sanctuary where God's presence dwells, where peace reigns, and where his blessings flow abundantly. You declare that your home is a fortress of faith, guarded by the power of God and seasoned by his covenant promises. You see, salt isn't just a seasoning. It's a symbol of God's presence, power, and promise. When you put salt in these 5 places in your home, you're making a bold spiritual statement. You're aligning your life with God's protection, provision, vision, peace, and favor. Don't underestimate the power of faith expressed through simple acts. Watch God move in your home, in your family, and in your life. Stand firm, declare his goodness, and trust that his promises will come to pass. Salt these places today and prepare to see the miraculous unfold.